very good morning from the Oatridge campus of Scotland's Rural College, and a warm welcome to this live event to showcase our wildlife and conservation management courses. Thank you all for joining us today. My name's Graham West and I'm the Marketing and Student Recruitment Officer here on campus. The format for today will be as follows, but first just a few quick housekeeping notes. We can't hear you, but hopefully you can hear us. And please do use the Q&A bar on the right hand side to ask questions. But note there's a short delay between us talking and you hearing, so please bear that in mind. The event's being recorded and I'll share a link within 24 hours to allow you to view it, review it at a later date, and perhaps to ask any further questions that might occur to you after today. I'll shortly introduce my colleague Ian Lewis, one of the lecturers in this suite of courses, and Ian will take us through a presentation on the various courses available, which I hope will give you a flavour of how the academic team aim to provide the very highest quality of structured learning from our campus here at Oatridge. The teaching teams on campus are constantly adapting and developing new ways to deliver quality learning for our students, using a blended approach which, depending on the subject, will combine online, classroom and practical work. Following the presentation, we'll be happy to review and address any questions you may have, so please again do use the Q&A bar. So without further ado, I'll pass you to Ian, introduce you to Ian to let him take you through his presentation.
Good morning. Hello, my name's Ian Lewis, as Graham has already introduced me. I am the course tutor for our HNC Wildlife and Conservation Management course at Oatridge. My colleagues are tutors for the different courses, so that one happens to be mine. I will give you a little bit of a run through about what we do within that teaching area at Oatridge in particular, but also bearing in mind that we deliver similar courses at other campuses. Crapeston, Aberdeen, Barony down in Dumfries, Elmwood in Fife, and of course in Edinburgh itself. So my job is to teach across a number of different courses, at present from the NC level, which is a further education course, through HNC, HND. I've also been involved in teaching on the degree course, on the master's course that we do as a distance learning module, so across the whole spectrum of our courses. At Oatridge it's predominantly NC and HNC and HND. So I will just begin what it is that we do, and hopefully you can see that. And will tell me if you can.
Presentation is live, John.
Okay,
Ian,
all
Ian,
good.
sorry.
So thank you. That should be all of them about. If I click again, yep, I thought so. Knew I didn't want to go too far there. There we go. Right, so we teach across a range of courses. We're somewhat in transition at the moment, but we do have a number of FE level courses at NC and certificate levels, which are SCQ. For those of you that know your Scottish qualification framework, they're levels 4 and 5. Our NC Countryside Management is a level 5 course. Our HNC is a level 7 course. HND is level 8, obviously. The degree is levels 9 and 10, and then the master's is level 11. So we aren't running a rural skills course at the moment, but we do have some hope that we'd be running an NC on the rural skills again. That will be a level 4, and that's kind of an introduction to the whole suite of different rural skills, countryside and rural employment skills. At the NC level, our countryside management course is predominantly kind of, all of those FE level, shall I say, courses are predominantly practical and hands-on, very much applied to kind of like outdoor jobs that are based in the outdoors and are mostly meant to be quite practical and hands-on courses and hands-on employment. So there's a few pictures of people doing outdoorsy things and a bird doing outdoorsy things. That's a capercaillie. So there we go. Right, so yes, our NC courses right at the beginning for introductory level stuff to our rural sector. Like I said, they're currently not delivering a rural skills or a certificate, but we have hope that we will be delivering them again. So do keep an eye on our website and on our course list, and do just ask us, you know, if we are. They are meant to be kind of introductory, straight. Usually people coming from school, and looking to get into this sector, but they don't have necessarily any experience. Not everyone comes from a countryside rural background. And it also involves a whole bunch of introduction to a lot of different areas. So people can sometimes follow those courses and go into things like horticulture or landscape design or a bunch of other things that have got if they find out that's what their interest is. So I will just, as those currently aren't on the delivery, I will skip over those for the moment. They are, well, just if we do run them, the rural skills are shorter durations. They're 10 or 11 weeks and then 20 weeks. So depending on when, generally speaking, they're for people, if people are leaving school at the end of December rather than the end of September. So it's kind of geared up to sort of school leaving age student applicants. So similar to that, that's 20 weeks for the rural skills. I won't talk about the subject content because, like I said, at the moment we aren't heavily delivering on it. We aren't delivering on it at the moment, but we might still. So it's meant to, all our introductory courses are meant to kind of give an introduction to the whole range of different outdoor/rural employment options. So estate work, working for estates, which might involve infrastructure or building materials, so tree felling, dry stone wall building, fence building, path building, the general tool use and whatnot. For estate workers, there might be sort of people there is a there are the courses other than ours are specifically about landscaping and gardening and horticulture, but that course does do an intro to that as well for people without any experience at all. We don't do that, but we do have like an overview of the land-based industries in general. Elsewhere, we do gamekeeping courses as well. So not that we do that at Oatridge, but it is something that we get people sometimes go into from our intro course. And of course, it has to cover the whole gamut of the employability skills. So all those general skills that everyone needs to master in the world of work, beyond just the practical. So the communication skills, the literacy, the numeracy, the computer skills, that kind of thing. So we're very keen on integrating that into our courses and making sure that everyone's got a good grounding in general employability skills, which applies to all of our courses really, but particularly at the FE level. We get into the things that I deliver on myself. Again, this is an NC, but this is a level 5 NC. The others were level 4 courses. So this is one we deliver on campus in Oatridge. And again, it has a strong practical focus. We're very much spending a lot of our time outside, very much spending a lot of our time delivering practical skills training in the rural environment, in real situations. We work a lot with partners in different organizations. We go to different places and we work with different people. Usually it's a nice opportunity for students to meet people who are working in the sector and meet people who can tell them about the kind of the jobs that are out there and what those jobs entail. So we aren't just, not only are we not just sitting in the classroom, we're not just sitting on our campus either. We get out there and we talk to real people doing real things. That course program for the NC covers a whole range of different units, a whole range of different areas. The minimum requirement for that course is 12 units. We will deliver up to 18 units for students, which is 6 units a block for 3 blocks. So we fill your time. But yeah, the minimum requirement for the NC is 12 units. So we will do a whole bunch of different subject areas, starting and including wildlife ID skills and investigating animal wildlife, which is again building on that, taking it forward into kind of an investigation, like a little project you would do about a particular species, something of your choice. This isn't my present. I would have organised. I would have ordered these differently. Oh, John, why are they in this order? I would have spoken about habitat management path. Oops, I've jumped forward. My bad. Habitat management path work. fence construction, countryside woodwork, and practical conservation habitat management in Scotland. I would have spoken about all of those in one together. They are the out there, hands-on, making, building, practical skills, tool use skills. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 5. That's almost a third of the course right there. That's almost completely dedicated to practical hands-on skills. The other 2/3 will be a range of different useful countryside/rural skills. The ecology, wildlife stuff, identifying wildlife, investigating species, in investigating animal wildlife, biodiversity, which is, we know what that word is, even if it's a tricky one to describe always, but the sum total of all living things. So understanding the significance and the importance of biodiversity, habitat assessment, which is again going out and looking at habitats in context and assessing what different things are. So being able to identify different habitats, different woodlands, different types of grassland, that kind of thing, at a very much an introductory level. Those are the ecology, biodiversity side of things. So again, that's heading out towards a third of the course that's very much habitats and species oriented. So being able to identify things, being able to know what you're looking at, being able to understand what its significance is and what it means. And then of course that ties in with the practical skills, which is knowing how to look after it. Because we aren't just interested in knowing what it is, we're interested in being able to manage it, look after it, protect it, preserve it for future generations and secure its future. And then there's another section of outdoor skill courses, map reading, the general skills of communications, first aid, map reading, which are all good, useful skills to have in any sector, but particularly in the outdoor sector. And then we bring in a little bit about people. We'll talk about countryside recreation, access to the countryside, sustainability, how we look after and use the countryside, doing it in ways that are sustainable, how we interpret the countryside for people, which is about how we engage, how we help people connect to the environment, I suppose is the best way to say that. The environment's important, nature's important, the countryside is important, but not everyone has a connection to it. Not everyone is experienced in it. Not everyone goes out and enjoys it. Not everyone knows much about it when they go there. So when we talk about interpretation, we're often talking about helping people have that understanding and good experience outdoors. So we act as, so there's a lot of the work in the countryside sector is encouraging people to get out there and enjoy it, get out there and see it, get out there and experience it, and then get out there and understand it. The idea is that if you want to value something, it helps if you know something about it and you understand something about the principles, then it helps you understand the right things to do, helps you make the right decisions, helps you be enthusiastic about it. And if people are enthusiastic about the environment and the countryside, then it's going to be cared for. So I hope that kind of convinces you that there's a fairly wide spread of experiences on the course, on the NC level. Practical, but also not just practical building, making, doing, but practical going out and experiencing the environment and trying to understand it, and then trying to help other people understand it. That's the certificate study, so I'll just jump over that because I don't necessarily do that, but these are slightly, pardon me, something like we have a range of different study tours and whatnot, which I will come back to talk about in general. So I won't talk about them each individually. I'll talk about them more when I get through the basics of the different courses. So I will come back to the whole study tour question in a minute. Okay, we jump up to the HNC and the HND. All of these courses are designed to feed one to the other. So you want to do our NC, countryside management. if you pass that course in good order, you're set up to then move on, should you wish, to the HNC. There's a 2-level jump there from 5 to 7. But the idea is that if you've been through our course, you know how our systems work and you know how we teach and everything, then hopefully you're set up, should you want to progress, should you want to take that jump and jump up to the HE level, you're able to do so. The HNC and the HND follow consecutively on each other. Again, it's meant to progress from one to the next. There we go. Again, also, I'll talk about our timetabling in a minute as well, but I'll just rattle through a little bit about the different course content so you've got an idea about what it is we do before I talk about the how we do it. So an NC, 15 modules, 5 a block. I'll come to that in a bit. Again, a spread of different subject areas, less practical hands-on, but we do still encourage that, and we will facilitate people doing hands-on practical skills at the HNC level as well. We try to make use of our Wednesday afternoons to do more practical things, but we try to encourage students to lead on that themselves. But the course content, a range of different units again. The ecology side, identification and classification, ecology and ecosystems, more biodiversity. Those are stepping up a little bit from the NC level, but are taking a slightly more in-depth view. So understanding how we group different species in different groups and how we classify them as different things. What is a reptile? What is a bird? What is a pine? What is a pine tree? Blah blah blah. It's actually very difficult to pin down what a bird is, because on account of their being evolved from dinosaurs. So it's actually quite a lot of interesting questions about how you divide things up into different categories in the natural world. And then once you've got a bit of ideas of classification, then we use that in our identification skills. So we try and turn it into something practical and useful. We go out and we look at things, try and ID them, make up logbooks of what we've seen and how we know that we've identified it properly and so on. And then that feeds into our ecology and biodiversity units, which are again trying to be as practical and applied and useful as possible, talking about the different examples of habitats and ecosystems within Scotland. Predominantly, we're a Scottish-based organisation. The majority of our subject area is about Scotland itself, but biodiversity and ecology is global. The principles are universal, so we do touch on more international issues a little bit as well. But the basic understanding of how biodiversity functions, how ecological processes work, and how we have to manage them in order to protect them. We have a little bit of geology and geodiversity, or geology and geomorphology in there as well, because that's another protected feature. There's a lot of very interesting geology and landscape features in Scotland that are important not just to us, but they're important globally because they were part of the development of the history of geology and how we come to understand how the planet works, how the continents move, how landscapes and mountains are formed. A lot of that key work was done by Enlightenment scientists in Scotland. There's some fantastic places in Scotland where interesting geological features were first understood, and how mountains are built and how glaciers have shaped the world and things like that. So we have a unit that's involved in looking at that, but also just a little bit of the basics of identifying rocks, identifying different soil types and landform types as well. So a local focus, but also an international focus on that, how the planet works, just a little bit. We are interested in ecology and ecosystems and biodiversity. Obviously, that's the natural world. We are wildlife conservation management. That's what we care about. But also, a large part of what we do is involved with people, land use and recreation, how people use the land, how people enjoy the land. Again, interpretation and visitor management, trying to be as practical and industry focused as possible, how important sites manage visitors, how people encourage visitors without harming the environment, how we try to engage with visitors and get people to understand the natural world so they can enjoy it, but also enjoy it in a responsible way and care for it. And then maybe we may or may not do leadership. We might do a different unit instead of that. It's on the books in some places, not necessarily every year. But again, it's about people engaging with and acting in the countryside and doing things in the natural environment in a sustainable and responsible way. Because we do deliver a unit on sustainability at NC, and we do deliver units of sustainability on HND as well. So that living in a sustainable way or treating the environment sustainably is very important across the whole course for us. So how we use the land, how we're aware of it and interact with it, environmental awareness, how we do recreation in it, how we enjoy it, how we look after it, how we manage it, how we control development in it, and how we engage with people in it are all connected together. So these units are all meant to be kind of like meshing together into the whole picture of how caring for the environment works. I will clip over and come back to the ranger service thing. I will come back to study tour as well, because I will do all of those in one go. You didn't see all those people drinking beer. There we go. Right, HND. Again, another step up. So up to SCQF level 8. And again, the HND is the highest level course we do at Oatridge, but it's not the highest level course we do at SRUC. So the HNC can be a standalone year. The HNC HND can be a standalone 2 years, leave with your HND. Or they can act as the first 2 years of a degree. So if you've really gotten a taste for it and you want more, there is more available. Not at Oatridge, but at Edinburgh, down in the southwest at Barony, up in Aberdeen, we offer the degree course, and we offer, I suppose I already ought to have said, we offer the HNC as a distance learning course as well. So some of this can be done remotely. But yeah, so the idea is that if you've done the HNC, HND, you can step straight into our 3rd year degree course and get your honours, get your bachelor's degree. And then that would let you on to the honours year degree for if you wanted to carry on again. So they are designed to do that. They are designed to allow you to take those steps as easily and efficiently as possible. Again, very straightforward. A set of courses, again, 15 modules spread out over 3 blocks. Again, the idea is a progression from one course to the next. So you will see that you'll go from ecology and ecosystems in HNC year to ecological surveying in HND year. You'll have done those courses at HNC, and there's a terrestrial ecology course and a freshwater ecology course and the marine environments course at HND. So then it's starting to look more in depth at different types of ecosystem, different types of habitats and communities, and the different processes involved in all of them. So yeah, so we have 3 different subject areas within ecology there: terrestrial, freshwater, and marine, looking at different types of ecology and types of ecosystems. We also, again, keep our hand in with some practical elements. Habitat management module, again, trying to make sure that we have opportunities to experience practical habitat management in situ, in context, at sites that are protected, nature reserves and so on. So again, taking the things that we've learned and using them to do good habitat management on the ground. So we do still keep our hand in with the practical aspects, even though we're at the HND, which is more theoretical. But yeah, a lot of the jobs in this sector are still a combination of theory and delivery, theory and practice. So it's quite possible to be a site manager who is writing and editing an ecology, a site management plan one day, worrying about their ecological survey methods the next, and out there checking that some path work is being done properly, or some fence work is being done properly, or checking that the mowing of a particular meadow is taking place at the right time of year and done in the right way, and that the cuttings are taken off the meadow so the meadow doesn't get too rich and turn to nettles. So yeah, so very much an idea that we have skills across the board. Very similar set of skills, science, bit of biology, practical skills, like I just said, the ecology side of things, but also handling information. So collecting data, managing data, using geographical information systems, which is about how to map information on maps. Geographical systems are fantastic. They're amazing at showing, they're amazing ways of showing information in map form. And conservation and ecological management wouldn't be possible without them, without being able to map precisely where things are and being able to map different levels of identifying features on a map all at once. Is very important in being able to properly manage a site. If you can map it, you can manage it. So we're very interested in being able to ensure that our students can collect information, but they also know what to do with that information when they collect it. So how to do basic statistics and how to put it on a mapping system that people can use and see and make use of. Again, people are really important. Tourism, sustainability, education, applied interpretation, very much about ensuring that not only do we know how to live more sustainably and how to manage land sustainably, but we know how to engage other people and teach other people how to live sustainably and how to manage land more sustainably and how to enjoy the landscape that we have in Scotland more sustainably. So yes, environment, yes, habitat, yes, species, yes, ecology, but also yes, people. It's very important that those things are done together, because national parks and national nature reserves are there for people to enjoy. They have to be there for people to enjoy. Without people enjoying the wildlife and ecology and the environments and the species and the beautiful landscapes, it wouldn't be possible to protect them. It has to be done with people. We have to make sure that people are enjoying and appreciating and understanding. So that's a very significant part of what we do. In terms of how we do it, we run NCH and CHND. We run courses over the course of the year from September to the end of May. And we run them in 3 blocks, 3 terms, and we run them in blocks of 10 weeks. So each of those units I've just described, most of them are a 10-week course. 1 session a week for 10 weeks, about 30 hours in total. There's a couple of them that run across 2 blocks, but not many. So we have 10 weeks of teaching, a week for catch up, a week for anything that needs to be mopped up at the end of it, and then we're on to the next set of subjects. So we start in early September, we'll finish in late May. At Oatridge in particular, different things will apply in different places, but we try and keep everything nice and tight. So you can see there that the HND has got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday on it. Those are the normal days for the HNDs to be either on campus or learning remotely. The HNCs, he said, flicking quickly back to, I still ignore those people drinking beer. Go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, 3 days a week. So again, we try and keep it all together. So again, 3 blocks of 10 weeks, lessons on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So you are on campus or learning remotely or on a site those days. So there will be a set module, a set unit on a Monday morning, a Monday afternoon, a Tuesday morning, a Tuesday afternoon, and a Wednesday morning for the HNC. Wednesday afternoon is slightly different because we try and run it as a student-led opportunity to do practical things. So basically 5 subjects at a time. 5 subjects in a block, 3 blocks in a year. gets you a HNC or an HND over the second year. The NC will be in on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So again, 3 days altogether in the week. Does mean people can work part-time. Obviously, time management is an issue that everyone has to manage, but yeah, it does mean that it is possible to continue working while you're a student. It is also possible to study part-time on any of those courses. So to spread 15 units of the HNC or HND over 2 years. So that would be Mondays and some Wednesdays in the first year, and then say Tuesdays and some Wednesdays in the second year. It depends on individual needs, but we're relatively flexible. As long as you get all of the modules at one point or another in those 2 years, it's usually possible to make it work. But generally speaking, people do part-time students will do Mondays and Wednesdays in the first year, and then Tuesdays and Wednesdays in the second year, and spread the course out over 2 years. Funding is possible for that. SAS fund part-time courses slightly differently to how they fund full-time courses, but it is doable. And we do have funding officers available to help with that sort of thing. Funding officers who will offer advice and explanation as to how it all works. And when we have on-campus open days, the Student Academic Award Service, SAS, are there to talk to potential students as well about how all their systems work. So yes. So that's kind of how the course is split up. Generally done over a year. Perfectly possible to do it over 2. Theoretically, it's possible to do it over more than that if you wanted to or needed to. Generally 3 days a week. Generally, those 3 days are all together. So Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 5 units at a time over 10 weeks, and then a new set of 5 units in the next block, and a new set of 5 units in the last block. Unfortunately, they have to be assessed. So, there are there are pieces of assessment work that you have to do and pass. They're very different at the different levels. At the NC level, they are very practical focused. So there'll be small written reports and whatnot about what you did and how you did it, or a particular piece of research about a species or something. But predominantly workbooks where you're noting the tasks that you've undertaken, you've noted the materials and equipment you've used, you've noted the safety protocols you've undertaken, you've written a risk assessment, you've demonstrated you understand how it's done in your workbook and why we do it that way, and then you're observed actually doing it there on the ground. So a lot of the assessments is one of us, letting you get on with it and just going, yep, they've understood the task. They've done the different steps in the right order. They know what they're doing. They've used the tools properly. They've used the tools and equipment safely. And we can just tick our little tick lists and go, yep, fantastic, wonderful. So something like that, and a workbook where you're noting that stuff yourself at the NC level, a few little quizzes about tool use and safety and so on, that kind of thing. But we mostly try and keep it very practically focused. So even though you're writing some answers and things to a question, or you're filling out a workbook, it's about something real. It's about something tangible that you've done or are doing. HNC, HND level, a bit more writing, a bit more report writing, a bit more tests and so on. But again, we try and keep them as focused as possible on the real world. So you'll have tests to do. I don't think that we do a single closed book test anymore at HNC level, certainly. We aren't there to test your memory. We're there to test your understanding. So it's not a memory quiz that you have to sit there and try and cram information into your head. It's about answering questions where you've got your information with you, you've got your own notes, you've got the materials on the teaching platform that we use, and you're using that information to answer questions that you've already been introduced to. So we are not there to quiz your memory skills, which is not useful in the real world of work. We're there to let you show that you've understood what you've been taught and you can use it properly and you can answer questions on it. So yeah, generally speaking, Each unit has 2 or 3 assessments. We try and spread them out. We try and make sure that they're not too big and unmanageable, so that they're broken down into manageable little chunks. And generally, you submit them into our Moodle teaching platform online. So mostly they're electronic rather than paper copy of anything. Yeah, I think that's kind of about all I need to say on terms of assessment. There is, obviously there's second attempts and everything, so it's not as we're trying to make, obviously it's not a high pressure, pass or fail, everything's awful if you can't pass that one assessment. We have systems in place where people have second attempts and everything. There's opportunity to have, resits and whatnot. And obviously we have our management of student needs. So all of those additional support needs that anyone might have get factored in. We understand that people have additional needs based around all sorts of things like dyslexia and so on. So we have systems in place to take that into account and make life as fair as possible for everybody. And of course we can offer, we have systems in place to offer extensions and whatnot for people when life gets in the way. So we are fair. We try to be fair. Kind of that's it about the courses and the units really, and the assessments. I don't know whether anyone has put any questions in yet. Graham will doubtless tell me towards the end.
Yeah, we have had a few questions.
Okay, good. I'll not try and guess what people want to know. Then I'll just keep going, and then I'll stop, and then we can deal with those questions.
Sure.
One thing I would like to say about is study tours and so on. That's quite an important thing, and that's changed quite a lot over the last couple of years. So we do try and make sure that students have an opportunity to go somewhere within part of their course, and generally speaking, that's around Easter time-ish. The NC one is very good. It's very new. It's organized through the Turing scheme, and this is the second year this has been running, and a lot of our NC students are going to South Africa for, I think, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 3 weeks maybe. I think 3 weeks. Almost completely fully funded trip to South Africa to a game reserve to have some experience of, a completely different environment on a game reserve and working in that environment. The previous year it was Kenya, and students went on that and had a fantastic and amazing time for 3 or 4 weeks. This year it's South Africa. And like I say, almost fully funded. I think there might be a few £100 that the students have to put up themselves, but most of that, almost all of the money, several £1,000s, comes to this Turing scheme. And all the students that went on it last year had an amazing time and said it was fantastic. So it's a big opportunity to go and experience something completely different and a completely new environment, and see how this stuff applies elsewhere. See how the rest of the world does stuff. And yeah, if you go into the field of ecology, there's nothing to say that you can't end up working on, something interesting somewhere exotic. I don't think most of the students that I know who've gone through our courses have remained in Britain, but we haven't done this overseas course for only a year or so now. So, it might turn out that we end up with students that go off and do placements there, and we'd love to see that happen. So it's a really interesting opportunity, and I hope everyone grabs it on the NC. That's at the NC level, which is fully funded. Annoyingly, they're not fully funded at the HE level. So they exist, but there's quite a big price tag attached to it if you want to do that as a higher education student. We do have another option for the HE level, which is almost fully funded, which is a trip to Romania, again 3 or 4 weeks. And I was over there some years ago. I only got to go for a week. The students were there for a month, and again, totally different environment, going out and seeing how land is managed and how people manage the land and how people manage the environment in a very different environment in Eastern Europe, in Romania. Not quite in Transylvania, but not a million miles away from Transylvania. So I have to skip forward and try and find, there we go, that's the one. Yeah, so we're near a city called Cluj, which is the second city of Romania. So somewhere in the middle there, which is a fantastic environment. Beautiful, it's a beautiful country with some spectacular natural environment that's managed in very traditional ways. These are little mountain huts up in the mountain that we walked to and had a look at. There are grapevines, there's orchards, there's little farms that that pretty much self-sufficient and make their own wine and make their own foodstuffs and everything. And it's a very different way of life, and it's a fantastic place to see. And the nature there is quite interesting, and there's an awful lot more nature there because it's slightly less developed and slightly less industrialized. There's a lot of interesting nature there to see, and to see how people interact with it and so on. So it's a fantastic opportunity, and a lot of our students have been on that over the last so many years, and some are going again this year. So that's Romania, that's almost fully funded for the HN. Just skip back again, sorry. Still ignore those people drinking. This is the island of Rum. So as an alternative, we have, when other study tours, like the fact the HN students couldn't go on a fully funded Africa tour this year, and not everyone is free to take a month off and scoot around to East Central Europe and enjoy themselves in Romania. So over the years, we've been to the island of Rum a number of times, and we're going again at the start of April this year for a week, which is one of the small isles off the west coast of Scotland. We take a ferry out of Mallaig, and we stay for a week, and we do a bunch of things on the island. It's a very pretty island. It's very rugged. That's Kinloch Castle, Kinloch Screesort, little tiny village. It's a national nature reserve. It's managed by Nature Scotland, almost all owned by Nature Scotland. It's pretty dramatic, and we go there for a week, Monday to Friday generally, and we will do a bunch of different things there. We will go and see the Deer Study Centre. They've got a long-running deer ecology project, and we have volunteered to go and scramble around in a glen looking for shed deer antlers for a day. We would go up to the other end of the island to do a beach clean and log what we find. We might do a little bit of around the village. There's various areas of rhododendron that need to be controlled because it's a somewhat invasive species, and we'll spend a day or a half day wearing ourselves out with bow saws and whatnot, cutting back and cutting down rhododendron bushes and so on. Possibly a few other bits and pieces that are course related. Study tours are not specifically course related. They're not specifically tied in with a particular unit. You don't have to do them. So they're an opportunity to learn about the course. They're an opportunity to see stuff in action. They're an opportunity where possible to apply some of the things you've learned, but they aren't mandatory for the course. So there are not any assessments that you must be on study tour to do. We know not everyone always has the facility to take a month off to go somewhere exotic, or even necessarily take a week off to go to Rum. So we try and use our skills, but they aren't specifically tied to a particular outcome. The island of Rum has a little village shop. The island of Rum's little village shop does sell beer and wine, so we do have a nice time when we're there, and we're very sociable. And once we're off duty, and we've down tools at the end of the day, so it is a very nice. Hopefully, we'll have a bit of weather and we'll have a barbecue and all the rest of it, and it will be lovely. It will probably tip down with rain all week long, but we live in hope. So talked about that. Talked about Romania. Talked about the beautiful little mountains which they have. Oh, that's all. More pictures of Romania. There you go. There we go. And we do, like I said, we do carry on to degree level taught in a different way, taught over 2 semesters, and the marking is different and so on. But essentially, if you've done 2 years with us, we've set you up right, and our students generally do very well at the degree, the ones that carry on. We also sometimes have a professional training qualification for ecologists and sort of early career ecologists who come and do a small suite of units with us. And we do, if you are really enthusiastic, we can teach you all the way up to master's level, all the way up to an MSc in wildlife and conservation management, which is taught over 2 years or 3 years if you do the full SC with a research project at the end of it. And again, a similar suite of subjects: people, ecology, land management, sustainability, communication, conservation management, and so on. So there you go. I think I have said most things about the courses. I think I have said most things about, I've discussed when we teach, the different units, 3 weeks of 3 blocks of 10 weeks. I think I've talked about all the units. I think I've talked about study tour. I haven't said anything particularly specific about Oatridge itself, but I can answer questions. I can fill those gaps in if anyone has anything they would like to specifically know. And I think at that point I'll stop.
Yeah,
okay, Graham?
Absolutely, Ian. Yeah, thank you very much. Very comprehensive, and we have had quite a few questions in, so let me just jump straight in and run through those. The very first one is about open days, taster days at Oatridge. I can answer that. It's also there's a follow-up question about the Oatridge Rangers service, ORCS, so I'm going to ask you to expand on that a little bit in a moment. But just to answer the first question, which is whether there are any in-person open day taster days at Oatridge or sessions with the Oatridge Rangers coming up, the answer to that is yes. We have an on-campus open day for our WCM courses planned for the 31st of May. It's not on our open day website quite yet, but it will be within the next week. So that's likely to be it's a Friday. It'll be an afternoon, sort of 1 o'clock till 4 o'clock session, where you would have a presentation from the lecturers, get to meet a couple of students probably, have a wander around the campus, but get right into the nitty-gritty of what the courses are all about. Meet the lecturers and just get a flavour of the passion that these guys and girls have got for their subject. The Rangers side, there's a question down a bit further down, Ian, about I'll ask you to expand on the whole ORCS thing, but Scott is asking, will I be able to join ORCS at NC level, or is it HNC and higher? And could you please give more info on ORCS? So perhaps you could just expand a little bit on the Oatridge Ranger and Conservation Stewards. I think you're muted, Ian.
That's because I flicked away to another screen. I was, yes, ORCS. ORCS has, well, something has been in existence for a very long time regarding Wednesday afternoons. We have wanted over the years to make it more student-led, make it more of an opportunity for students to lead on their own projects and take their own learning and take and apply it in ways that they're interested in. That's when it works well, it works really well. We are swithering about how much support we ought to be using as lecturers and how much we ought to leave it to students to lead their own activities, and we are just there kind of to facilitate. And COVID, of course, didn't help matters very much at all, because that made it almost impossible to do anything. So we're sort of a little bit of a reset with this. Anyone can take part, but the problem with NCs is the NCs do have subjects on Wednesday afternoon. A lot of those subjects are quite practical, so there ought to be an opportunity to for NCs to be able to do some of the things that ORCS are doing, because they will feed into some of the practical sessions that the NCs have to do anyway. So that's perfectly possible, depending on what's happening from week to week. but it depends on what the course content and what the NCs are doing at any one moment. So the NCs on a Wednesday is predominantly practical work, practical conservation, habitat management, practical habitat management in Scotland in the afternoon, and a lot of that might overlap with what Orcs ought to be doing anyway. I think we're going to take a bit more of a hands-on approach next year. I think it will be things like we liaise with, for example, Butterfly Conservation, who are an organisation present through Scotland, through Britain, but they have a site that they manage quite near us, a place called Blackmoss in Armadale. That site is a peat bog, a lowland raised bog. It needs to be as wet as possible to be a happy raised bog and encourage the right kind of plants for the right kind of butterflies. It drains too much because they tried to drain it for agriculture in the past. Blocking ditches is a thing that they need to do and they want to do. And I would encourage, and we would, I think, more next year facilitate students talking to Butterfly Conservation, arranging sessions, arranging how to do those sessions, and then we'll deliver and collect students and whatnot and so on and be there. So I think it's going to be more of a kind of a collaborative effort next year between the students and us. But I would, and if it's a practical task like that, then that fits in exactly with the NC course content, and we could make it happen. And it's an opportunity for the HN students to meet organisations that they might not meet otherwise and get chatting to conservation officers and whatnot, and get their hands, because the HND students don't get their hands dirty as much as maybe sometimes they like, so it gives them a chance to get their hands dirty. But I think there'll be more collaborative projects next year. I was talking to a chap I know who works in a site in Glasgow who's looking for people to do hazel coppice with him for him next winter, starting in November. I'd quite like cutting hazel trees down and coppicing them. Again, it's a job I quite enjoy doing. I don't get to do, so I would be more than happy to take a minibus full of students out there several times over the course of the winter on a Wednesday afternoon. I would be more than happy to introduce anyone who's taking on this project lead from the student point of view, introduce them to Stuart, who's manager of that site. And then kind of facilitate them arranging sessions and going out and doing those practical tasks, and then he can kind of like explain his job and his purpose and so on. So yeah, it'll be a mixed bag, I think, next year. But there we ought to be able to make it fit with the NCs, we ought to make sure that it really delivers for what students can benefit from, opportunity to meet people primarily.
I think, Ian, that just to touch on what you mentioned there, very much an opportunity for students to do a bit of networking. I've had the pleasure of going out to Blawhorn Moss a couple of times, which is the peat bog that Ian was talking about there, where students have worked with Nature Scotland to do drainage and vegetation clearing and those kind of things. But for me, one of the key things is that the students get the opportunity to network with some of the key people in these organisations that who may be looking for temporary, seasonal or full-time people. So it's an opportunity for students to big themselves up, chat to these people and make an impression, so that when they do have these opportunities coming up, the guy or the lady goes, do you know what, that's that I remember that guy with the red hair. I'll phone Ian Lewis and find out if he's available to come and work for us this summer, that kind of thing. Because typically in this sector, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Ian, but it's quite a closed knit community, and these guys all talk to each other, and often some of these kind of particularly like seasonal ranger jobs, countryside rangers, these type of things, they don't get as far as an online recruitment site because they're all talking to each other and they know people. So if students can get ahead of the game there, do a bit of networking, I think it's a really good opportunity. Plus it's great for their coursework as well, because they're ticking boxes for the modules, but they're also doing good stuff. I mean, at Blawhorn, for instance, they've been involved in building a wooden walkway right out into the middle of the moss, and they've now got local primary schools are whizzing out there with busloads of kids. So they're getting these young people, very young people, looking at newts and dragonflies and all the different flora and fauna that Ian's mentioning at a very young age, and hopefully picking up on the environmental the importance of sustainability and environmental action. So it's really good.
That's something that isn't in that presentation. I need to remember to get that added to is about, what do people do when they do this course? Over recent years, we've had a lot of good success with students going on into the industry. A lot of that grew out of Green Recovery Fund money post-Scotland, post-COVID, which was brilliant for a lot of our students. They provided some seasonal work, which then led into more permanent posts. But we've had a lot of students go into contract ecological surveying. So while they were students, they got out there and they pestered people and they learnt how to survey bats, for instance, or they started working on vegetation surveys with somebody, and from that's what got them a job. So they went out and they volunteered and they learnt some skills and they met people and they got a job. We had a lot of students who've gone and who ended up working for Forest and Land Scotland in ranger posts recently, or they're I forget the name of the job title, woodland craftsperson, I think it is, which is a mix of a whole bunch of different skills, everything from safety inspections and path inspections through to working with volunteers, working with visitors and so on. So yeah, it's not just the classic ranger service jobs. Those jobs are actually to some degree becoming less common, and the seasonal post less common, but community trusts, working with communities who are managing their own landscape and their own environment, working for Forest and Land Scotland, working in conservation ecology in particular. So get some ecology skills, get some survey skills, which the only way to do really is to do it yourself and to find other people who will teach you. And there's lots of people out there who are very keen to teach people. But that's how to get an ecology job, is to go out and meet people. So yes, exactly. The more we encourage people to get out there and do it, the better it is for everyone.
Sure, thank you, Ian. Couple on distance learning. I think it might be the same person, this one. Can you tell us more about the distance learning options, but also specifically, are there any plans to offer the HND via distance learning in the future?
No, not that I'm aware of. We should. It would make a lot of sense. Distance learning at the HNC level is technically managed out of Aberdeen, out of the North faculty. It's generally done part-time or full-time, over 1 year or over 2 years. It's kind of the same block structure as our normal on-campus, we're not fully on campus now. We are pretty good now at what we would call blended learning, which is the right mix of being face-to-face and being online and being out on site. But the distance learning is the same 3 blocks, 10 weeks blocks over the year, pretty much the same timetable. They try to get everyone together for a couple of weekend study sessions so that everyone at least actually gets to do the same thing. But it's the HNC only at the moment, and it's the necessary 12 units to get the HNC, which means that we have to then, if people want to go from the distance learning HNC to the HND, it's doable, but we need to get you those other 3 units as well. But we ought to be offering the HND. We have mentioned it in the past, and hopefully we will one day, but at present it's not an option at the moment.
Thank you, Ian. Here's one. I'll step back from this one because I'm biased. But the question is being asked: how much does the course content and teaching staff, specifically at HNC, HND level, vary between campuses? I'm currently deciding between Oatridge, which is convenient because it's closer, and Barony.
Sure. Course content will vary very little. There might be, I think between us and Barony, there's 1 unit difference. There might be 2 units different. but it's very minor out of the 15 across, say, the HNC or the 15 across the HND. We teach our biology module in HND year, and I'm going to have to quickly scoot back to my timetable now. We teach conservation skills at HNC, and we teach biology at HND. Barony do that the other way around. I think they do a leadership of countryside activities, and we do wildlife management. So it is almost completely the same, with one or two slight differences in the slight differences in when we teach between HNC and HND, which is biology. We prefer to put biology in second year, and make sure there's conservation skills in the first year. Barony do it the other way around, and then there's one, maybe two modules that might be different. I think they do leadership and we don't. We do wildlife management. So it's almost completely the same. The only thing that there is a difference, and it's the timetable. Barony won't have the same Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday timetable that we have. So you will want to find out when the units are being taught through the week in different blocks, depending on where you're going, because that will differ. Right.
Okay, Ian, thank you for that. I know you would expect me to say this, everyone, but I am biased. But Oatridge is a 780-acre campus with a working farm and some woodland and very diverse. It's got a watercourse going through it. It's got lots of diverse habitat, and the students actually spend quite a few of their practical sessions actually working on campus as well, doing surveys of various kinds in the water, in the woodland. There are lots of different types of habitat and lots of different types of wildlife as well, but I'm biased. So hopefully that's answered your question, Mr. Anonymous or Miss Anonymous. Okay, so the next one, there's a group of questions, Ian, so I'll maybe try and kind of generalize here, if I may, for everyone. Student trips. Can I just start this part of the conversation by saying personally, I don't think there is a subject area within the whole of SRUC where the course, where the trips and the opportunity to go different places are as good as in this subject area. I mean, it really is terrific. You go to Aviemore, they go to Rum, they go to Transylvania. As Ian has mentioned, there's been trips to Kenya. There is a trip coming up just in March. I think some students are crowdfunding at the moment to go to Kruger National Park, I think, Ian, which sounds like a great one. So there's a lot of questions on, well, there's one quick one here then, perhaps. Would study trips be available on the the distance learning courses?
I don't see any reason why not. But as that's managed out of Aberdeen, it's not something that the DLHNC is not something I'm really qualified to answer. But you're on the course. I don't see why. You certainly have access to all of those courses that exist. You have access to, you'd be on the HNC, so you would have access to the Romania trip in the same way that any of our students would. The Romania trip is almost fully funded. It might be flights that aren't. I'm not 100% sure, or it might be flights, or it might be that the flight is funded from Gatwick or wherever the hell it goes from to get to Cluj, but it's not, but the connection isn't, or something like that. It is almost fully funded. The NC Turing scheme funded Africa tours are completely fully funded, I think. The Rum trip isn't, unfortunately, and that is costing students £300 to go to Rum for the week, which is transport, accommodation, food, a whole lot of that. So yeah, sometimes 300 quid for a week does sound, but then on the other hand, you're not paying for, you're not going shopping that week, so you do have to. There's a slight thing that you want to maybe balance it out the other way. So yeah, it depends on the individual study tour, but there's no reason why a distance learning student couldn't tap into any of those trips. That way, the one that would be most likely would be the Romania one, I think, which is almost fully funded.
So that's good. Thank you.
Yep.
Couple of supplementaries on the trips. Are they over the Easter holidays? I think the answer to that is no. Tend to be summer based, do they?
No. The answer is the rum trip is starting on Sunday, the 31st of March. So that is the first week of what we consider the Easter holiday. The South Africa trips will start in mid-March. So give me 2 seconds and I will pull up my own diary and I will tell you that because I know that. The South Africa trip is starting on the 17th of March and returns returns in early April. So I think it's either 3 or 4 weeks. So I think students are back before the 15th of April, I believe. Yes, definitely. The students are definitely back before the start of term again on the 15th of April. So yeah, the South Africa one starts on the 17th of March. The rum trip is over Easter, and I know the students return on the 20th of April. But I haven't got an immediate note of when they leave, but I think it's the 31st of March. So I think the Romania study tour goes on the 31st of March and comes back on the 20th of April, if memory serves. So yeah, it is predominantly around Easter.
Okay, thank you. This is one which is to do with family and other commitments. How is 4 weeks possible for most people with families and other commitments? I guess
go to rum with us. Spend 5 days with us on rum. I totally, yes, and that's why they're not mandatory, because we can't force people to abandon their families for a month to go on a study tour, even a week. You know, it's not reasonable to expect people to have to be able to do that. So yes, it's a nice thing. It's fantastic. The more people go on it, the better time we have, the more sociable it is, the more value everyone gets out of it. But yeah, no, we can't make it mandatory because we know not everyone feasibly can do it. That's just the way life is.
Sure. Okay, next one. For the practical sessions of the course, particularly HNC and HND, are these generally taught on campus or around Scotland?
Quite a bit of our we do use our campus a lot. No, for instance, so fencing or path building with the NCs in particular, we will make use of our immediate campus quite a lot. We've got, like I said, Graham said, we've got a farm, we've got a big old area of land, we've got a lot of opportunity to do the basics there. We go places that are feasibly accessible. So within Oatridge is in West Lothian near Broxburn. Places we have gone to do practical work are Blawhorn Moss near Blackridge, Beaker Country Park, which is just up the road from us. Black Moss is just away from Armadale. Where else have we gone in the recent? We have done work with Muiravenside Country Park, which is just over the border in Falkirk. So we tend to stay relatively close to home just for logistical reasons of getting people and equipment from place to place. The furthest we've ever gone is probably Flanders Moss, which is away up in Stirlingshire, and we have to arrange a coach and everything for that, so it's more complicated. The guy I was talking to yesterday is based on the south side of Glasgow, so you know that's an hour away. I'm more than happy to arrange a day visit there, you know, because he can provide tools and whatnot, so we don't have to worry about safe transport of equipment. So all I need to do is arrange a minibus and burl over there for, you know, and burl over there and get there at 10 o'clock and, you know, pack up at 3. So yeah, it tends to be what's feasible. So we tend to be on campus and places that are readily accessible from our campus. And again, it's a lot of that is NC and Wednesday afternoons. And Wednesday afternoons we are limited by, you know, what's accessible and get home in time to everyone get away at the end of an afternoon. So we tend to be quite geographically constrained, but we do what we can.
Sure. Okay, Ian, thank you. I'm just a bit conscious of time, so we'll there's a couple more questions and then we'll wrap up, if I may, everyone. So here's one from Rory, who's kind of half answered his own question, but is entry into third year only possible if the HND is completed first? Are other similar degrees and experience acceptable too? I know the answer may depend on specific details, but any guidance is great.
Our HNC HND is specifically designed to send you straight into third year. Other courses, people have gone into second year. I know that for a fact. You would have to speak to admissions. You would have to, it would depend on your individual circumstance. If you had appropriate qualifications, it would depend on your qualifications. So you can ask that question of the people delivering the degree or the HNC HND in Barony or Aberdeen or Edinburgh, and they'll answer that depending on your own particular circumstance. The answer is yes. It depends, kind of.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, I think just a note on that particular one too is you also need to remember, everyone, that we have often mature students that join us, so they will have experience of working in the sector, may not have the practical academic requirements, but we do have quite a broad cohort of students coming. Some of them younger ones coming straight from school, others have been out working, so it's quite a broad thing. So our mature students may not have traditional academic achievements that we would require on the basis of the application form, but we do try very hard to make people fit the course, and it's all about the experience that they have, and it's all about their suitability, I suppose, and their passion to get into it. We have had quite a few people, I think, after COVID or during COVID, found that they suddenly thought, you know what, they were doing a lot of walking if they had access to the outdoors, and they suddenly thought, you know what, it would be really nice to get a change to my work-life balance, to not have to have the 100-mile-an-hour lifestyle with a big salary. I can get away with a bit less and do something that I love. So we do get lots of different students coming to us.
If someone has got a degree in a related subject area, and that might include geography, it's worth thinking about the master's course, which can be done as a 1-year PG cert or a 2-year PG diploma or a full 3-year master's if you want to do the dissertation as well. We've had quite a few people with who have proven that they have academic ability. They've done a degree, but it's not within this subject area necessarily, but they know how to do a degree, and they have almost treated the master's like a cram degree. So they've kind of, rather than worrying about it specifically being a level 11 course, they've gone, this gives me an opportunity to get everything as quickly as possible. So they do the PG dip over 2 years, rather than go back to square one and start at the bottom of another degree again. It's hard work because you've got to get up to speed quite quickly on the specifics of our subject area, but people have done that and they've made it work. And Graham is absolutely right. We've had lots of people come up at the HNC level. We've had people come in with no qualifications whatsoever, but they've got the skills, they've demonstrated the enthusiasm, and they've demonstrated they've got the ability, and we take that into account. That's very important to us, to be able to accommodate people with non-standard entry requirements or non-standard skills. Yes,
absolutely. Okay, I'm going to make this the last one.
Yep.
Ian, you've been doing an awful lot of talking, which has been great. So we're going to bring it to a close after this one. This is from our anonymous questioner, who he said, I understand from talking to Ian previously that you can choose to blend attended learning with distance learning, and he thought we might want to mention that.
Right. Okay. Well, to a degree, you give us money and we'll teach you. The issue with that is it might be a bit messy in terms of SAS fund, Student Academic Award Service funding. But yeah, people certainly do the DL HNC and then come and do the HND, you know, kind of like direct taught. We can, in theory, you can do some. We can switch you from one course to the other. It's a bit messy, but we can do it in that you could do some units with us and some units on the DL course and kind of accumulate your units that way over 2 years or something. So it wouldn't actually be a change of course. It would just be a campus switch. So it's doable, usually probably with a bit of faffing about, as long as it doesn't mess up your funding. So yes, we can. We're as flexible as we can be. And like I say, you give us money and we'll teach you. It's as simple as that. Not quite as simple as that, but it's there are options. It's best to actually discuss your option directly with us, and if we can make it work through having you registered at Oatridge for one part of a year or a year part-time, and then registered in the North faculty for another part of the year or another year, and accumulate the necessary units that way, it's probably doable.
Okay, thank you, Ian. And may I just make a most humble apology, because our anonymous questioner has actually said she, actually, so my apologies.
I'm still trying to learn how to do they on a regular basis. I totally get it, but it's like years of ingrained habit of not doing it, so I do my best.
Okay, Ian, thank you very much indeed for your contribution.
Pleasure.
I'll bring it to a close now. We've covered off all our questions, lots of great questions, and Ian, you've been very fulsome in your responses, so I hope everybody found that very, very useful. I will send an email to everybody within 24 hours with a link to YouTube recording of the event, so you guys will all have my email address. So if there are any further questions that you have for either myself on a wider general SRUC basis, or for Ian and the team in his subject area, please do send them in and we'll get answers for you. I will also send you a link to a short survey. Who doesn't like a feedback survey? But it literally does take a couple of minutes, and we'd very much appreciate it if you could complete that for us. And if you do get time to come to us for an on-campus open day, please do, because these are a real great opportunity to see the campus, get a bit of a tour, talk to the lecturers. We've got the next one coming up on the 31st of May, and there will be details on our website, which is just the standard SRUC/open days landing page, and I'll have the details of dates and information on those out next week. So just remains for me to say thank you all again. Have a good day, stay safe, and we hope to see you soon on campus or online, or better yet, as a new student at our Oatridge campus. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.